The Houston Texans are coming off another AFC South Division championship, and now they're in the 2025 offseason, wondering how they can even go farther, go to the AFC Championship, and maybe even hoist the Lombardi Trophy come 2025. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are going to be doing our first ever mock free agency for the Houston Texans. We're going to get into it here in a second, but before we do, hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Texans do this offseason. And Ryan, we're looking at this Texans team overall, and they're coming into free agency with about 5 million in cap space already. So not too much really
Yeah.
here overall when it comes to just maneuverability when it comes to re-signing some of these guys. But there's a couple guys I think they can re-sign that we'll get into here in a second. But a lot of these guys here, do you think? I think a lot of these guys are going to have to let it walk. What are
Yeah.
some of the kind of the key names you think that, and we'll be discussing on a little bit later, but are some of the ones that they really want to take a hard look at? How can we keep this guy on this team?
Yeah. I mean, Stephon Diggs, I think, is definitely going to be one, especially with the loss of Tank Dell. Robert Woods, I'll throw in there just because he is a wide receiver, even though he's 33 now. They have a few other guys like Eric Murray, Mario Edwards, Derek Barnett, like some rotational veteran guys that I think are going to be on maybe cheaper contracts, but still with only coming into this offseason with 5 million in cap space, they're definitely going to have to be pretty selective about who they bring in. And so one that just caught my eye was Kendrick Green. That was a former first round pick that's been a pretty much a bust for
No,
them.
you're thinking of Kenyon Green.
Oh,
Kendrick
Kenyon
Green
Green.
was Kendrick Green was the guy that kept coming in for when Kenyon Green got benched.
Okay.
So
Well,
they might want to keep him around just as a
yeah.
good bench piece.
Actually, that is insane that it's that close. Anyways,
Yeah.
but that's been probably the biggest thing that they're going to want to address is that interior offensive line. The one thing I will say, kind of getting into their cap space, is we did have to make some tough decisions, I think, to clear up some cap space, and so we did restructure Laramie Tunsil and Daniil Hunter's deal, gave them about $10 and $7 million up front, cleared up about another 15-ish million in available cap space. The other move that we had to do to clear up some cap space was get rid of Shaq Mason. He's been pretty stable up there. However, he is getting to 32 years old. This is a pretty solid interior offensive line draft class. So I feel like you take that $9.5 million and maybe move on from Shaq Mason here. And so I'm curious on Texans fans' thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But I do think, especially where they're picking at like 24 or 26, that it is 26 actually. They'll be right in the thick of the start of some of these interior offensive linemen like
25.
Donovan Jackson. Oh, 25. Okay, so
Yeah.
right around it. But like Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, I think Gray Zabel, Wyatt Milam, like you'll have a lot of these guys at this point. And then I think too, you look like centers usually start going in the late second, early third round. They could definitely dip in the center class there, and just really start to protect CJ Stroud and invest in that offensive line.
Yeah, I also think too we designated for post June 1st for one, you get a little more money from it, but two, also if they want to hang on to him then and then like go through training camp and then see
Yeah,
like where this offensive line is sticking at, because I think one of the things too, you can cut him or at least like restructure the deal. Like, hey, if we want to keep you around, we're going to have to pay you less money. So I think that's one. Another one too, kind of if we want to scroll down a little bit more here as well to the next guy, Danico Autry as well. This is something that's been kind of coming around for some time now, and we ended up deciding to bite the bullet here now for them just because it's that $5 million, $6 million could be used elsewhere. And another thing too, if they want to just improve the trenches overall, this is going to be the draft class, I think, to do it.
yeah,
And so like they're obviously going to be focusing on the offensive line, but if they want to get somebody on the interior as well in the defensive line class, I think like imagine if they went a Tyler Booker in the first round, and then let's say like a CJ West in the second round, and then they go and get who's the Georgia center?
Jared Wilson.
Jared Wilson. Yeah, and like really focus on that interior on both sides of the ball. I think would be an interesting route to go, but this just might be the year for them to do it, especially too if they want to keep a couple of players that we're going to talk about here in a second. And then lastly, we want to scroll down a little bit more. We had one more, Damian Pierce as well. Maybe they hang on to him just as a depth piece, but once again, maybe they get a late round running back who can come in and be the exact same thing as what
Yeah.
Dameon Pierce is now, just that backup running back to Joe Mixon. But maybe could provide some more value. And so things just haven't worked out nearly as much as well. He had a fine career in Houston. All things considered from when he was drafted, but it just hasn't panned out to him to be a top 32 or maybe even 64 running back in the league. So those are the main cuts. There's a couple other ones like maybe we could see like if they wanted to let go of Titus Howard. That's one potentially could be it. And one I've been reading about if they were wanting to restructure his deal, but kind of have to wait and see. But you already talked about the restructuring of deals with Laramie Tunsil and Daniil Hunter in a good way for them, where they get a nice fat uh, bonus check essentially. But couple of the guys that we were wanting to add on. So we did add on Eric Murray for helping out with that. The secondary. Texans do have a good secondary as well. They get benefited from having an amazing pass rush with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, but they even do have like guys like Derek Stingley as well are some of the top corners in the league. So keeping Eric Murray, keeping that continuity is going to be huge. But this is where some of the moves that we made already led to the additional signing of Stephon Diggs, doing something similar, coming off an ACL tear, do like a 1 year, 15. We did 15. It could be
Yeah.
13, 14, maybe it's even 16 or something like that. But Ryan, why do you think the Texans are more likely to do this deal now heading into this offseason? And if we're theoretically talking about some of the other moves that we've made?
Yeah, I mean, Stephon Diggs, he's already there. I know he's older and coming off a torn ACL, but the big thing for me was just Tank Dell. They still need to invest, I think, in the wide receiver class in the draft, but uh, Tank Dell is not going to be back this season. He has a that dislocated knee was very severe and will probably take him into 2026 to have to return. And so I feel like having him come back, he is still a dynamic receiver when he was on the field. And I feel like that is going to be just have some continuity outside of Nico Collins. Again, they'll still have to go find somebody else to play in that wide receiver room, but all in all, I feel like that is going to be the move that ultimately end up making is maybe bringing him back. There are a few other options, like you could maybe go out and get an Amari Cooper. Like you can invest more money, like take that $15 million and spread it around 3 or 4 other players, and maybe add more talent that way. But at the end of the day, I do feel like Stephon Diggs does make sense just with the continuity there. He's an explosive playmaker when he's on the field, and I feel like it all just seems to work there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just gonna be interesting though too, because like we saw what happened to this Texans offense. One as the injury started to pile up, but also two as the offensive line play
Mhm.
just slowly each week just got worse and worse, particularly on the interior. And so that's gonna be the primary focus, I think. And for this team, who they do only have 6 draft picks, it's I think this is gonna be if you're going to only have 6 draft picks, the Texas weaknesses are perfect for this draft class, which, as we talked about, is going to be the trenches. I think their skill position players, if they bring back Stephon Diggs, I really like that combo of him and Nico Collins. When Tank Dell was actually kind of in and out of the lineup earlier on in the year, this was actually a very nice tandem of a receiving duo of Nick Collins and Stephon Diggs. And so even during his 8 games that he played there, Stephon Diggs, uh, he was on pace to be 1,000 yard receiver as well. Through 8 games, he was 4 yards shy of 500 yards with 3 touchdowns. So I think there's still a lot of value for him there. Focus on this offensive line and focus on the defensive line. I think that's going to be the route that they end up going. But I
Mhm.
don't. I mean, there'll probably be some like low level, like roster filling guys that they can add on, but not going to be probably not going to be significant contributors to the team. The team that they had in 2024 is probably going to be very similar to the team that they're going to have in 2025, outside of like those special team guys.
Yeah, and It is tough. They put themselves in a bad cap situation this offseason. However, next offseason, right now, they would go into it with like $110 million. So we'll have to see how many internal free agents that they have. And they still have to sign like rookies to contracts and stuff. So maybe that comes down to like 60 or 70 million. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like that could be a really big opportunity for this team to take that next step with the amount of cap space that they'll have. So I'm looking forward to what the Texans can do. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Houston Texans mock free agency. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.